Why not smaller lights? Current lights are huge and hard to use inside medium and smaller spaces. So I talked about that last week, but TLDR essentially is that I think we chose this size of lights because lights are quite expensive in Satisfactory, and the main thing really is like the volumes, like the amount of volumes. So what we're fearing is that if we have smaller lights, that means that people are going to place more lights in the scene, and that means that it will be way less performant than just having one big light. So we want to discourage placing too many lights because you're gonna run into frame issues like pretty soon, regardless of how like good your computer is, and it's very hard to optimize away that. It's just there's no way of getting around it. I actually want to mention one thing though. In the latest version of Unreal Engine, they've introduced an experimental mode of something called MegaLights.
MegaLights, yeah.
Which is and it's even more of a rabbit hole because it's actually based on a paper that my professor wrote when I was studying computer graphics at Chalmers. So it's based on like a lot of those that research that was done here in Chalmers. Anyway, regardless, so that's another story for another time. But essentially, Unreal Engine has introduced something called MegaLights, which is essentially a way to be able to render many light sources and be able to render shadows for many light sources, because shadows is typically one of the most expensive parts of rendering lighting, and it's also one of the most important ones. So in 5.5, they introduced MegaLights, which makes it possible to have many lights in the scene without having too much of a big of an impact in terms of performance, because it's a very different way of handling many light sources. In 5.5, I believe it's not production ready, so even if we try it out, we probably won't be able to use it until 5.6, which is, I mean, it might also be 5.7 when they actually have it. Before I go too far, maybe I just want to confirm that it actually is not production ready. Yeah, it's an experimental feature right now. So much like Lumen was also an experimental feature for a long time in like 5.3 or 2, I think. Or wait, I don't think it was something else. Regardless, it could be beneficial for Satisfactory, and if it is, it might make sense to use MegaLights for lighting. But we haven't done any testing ourselves, so we have no idea. The thing about these like implementations is that, you know, they have trade-offs, and it's never certain that they'll work in our game, because we might need to make changes to our game to accommodate for certain techniques. Like nanite was something that a lot of people always like, why don't you use more nanite? And nanite actually requires a lot on our end to be able to set up properly. And, you know, implementing nanite on everything is not worth it. Like in terms of like us working on the game and like the time it takes to implement something that effectively might not change the gameplay too much for you guys, but also like performance wise, it might not actually make too much of a difference. It might just like look nicer. If anything, it might be worse performance, and that's actually something we saw with nanite for a long time, was actually that we thought that we were going to get better performance, but when we actually implemented it and tried it out, we actually got worse performance. But it looked better. So we made that trade-off at that point where like it's not that much worse and it does like way better. So we thought it was worth doing it on some parts of the game, but not all. Who needs performance? Yeah, right, Andrew, who does? Anyway, long story short, MegaLight, because I've gotten this question so many times and I didn't get it specifically here, but I just wanted to address it, that like MegaLights might be interesting for us in the future. Right now it's not production ready, so we won't be able to implement for Satisfactory. We also are like 2 versions behind on Unreal Engine, because I think we're on 5.3 and now we're on Unreal Engine 5.5. So we've got some catching up to do. And that always comes with complications. And we don't know if during 1.0, if it's like safe to do these engine upgrades, because we've in the past had a lot of issues when upgrading engine versions. So like it's up for debate if we actually dare to upgrade the engine at this point, because we don't want the quality of the game to go down. Like in early access is a different story because we're still actively developing the game. But so yeah, hopefully that made sense.
Good shit. And then
oh shit, that was the next question. I didn't even see that.
I was gonna say, are you clairvoyant?
Holy shit. Okay, cool. I just answered the 2 questions in one stone.
Nail it.
Yeah.